Make some noise. Adidi, Adidi.
Wait, tell her. Before I introduce him, can I ask a question? Has anyone here ever been to Japan? Japan, Japan, the land of the rising sun. I see we have one person who has it. The next story takes place in Japan. So prepare to be transported to a world you've never seen before, with pretty people, and a story that's told by a very pretty person. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Livhuhai Mayatshe May. Her story.
Excuse my voice, I've got Ebola. It's not a big deal, it's like the healing stages, so it should not be contagious. I didn't get it in Japan. So anyway, I remember the day of the interview. It was like a spring day at the embassy. You know, in Pretoria, you know, like spring, and you've got the jacaranda flowing. And you're just thinking like, this is a proper day for this to be happening. I had a panel interviewing me, and one of the guys asked, Libu-san, do you speak Japanese? And I was like, no. And I was not fazed at all. You know, I don't even watch Naruto or Dragon Ball Z. I was interviewing like for my dream job. I was going to get to teach English in Japan. So I was like, you know what, you're going to be paying me big bucks, so we're not going to worry about the language right now. I just want this job. So, you know, you've heard that saying that when you travel, you get to find yourself. So I was on that quest. I was like, you know, give me this job, I'm going to find myself, and everybody's going to be okay. When I was growing up, I had a brother. He was 2 years older than me. There was a rule in the house. Everywhere he went, I had to go with him. So my mom said, no, it's for us, we must protect each other. But I suspect she thought like, they can't steal 2 kids at one go. Or she was thinking, okay, if there's still one, the other one will say, what happened to the other one? So that's how we rolled. We'd be playing with the girls in Kusha, he'd be there, you know, and he'd go play with the boys after watching Power Rangers. I get to throw in a few kicks, you know, and if you can sneak in like a nosebleed, that's your street cred. So we'd do that. We'd be playing Chicago with the boys and girls, and that's what we did. The thing about my brother is that he's a fascinating character. He's very fascinating. He would dismantle anything that had a screw set up in the house. So he'd dismantle the phone, and that's a spanking because I was with him. So to like relieve that urge, he'd go to the dump and go collect and forage things and collect like dismantle things so that he can dismantle them further. And because I had to go with, if I don't go with, we're going to be in the house and he's going to dismantle something and everybody's going to get spanked. So I'd just go with him to the dump. He'd go climbing up trees and he'd be throwing down peaches and I'd be catching them. And then I'd be like, my turn. And then okay, he'd be like, okay, get up, get up. And then once you get to the second branch, he's like, no, 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 get down, you know, you're too fat, get down, get down. And that was our childhood. It was a beautiful childhood. And what happened in between that is that I learned to idealize him. He was like, you know, I just want to be next to this guy. I remember there was a point they'd ask him, they'd be like, okay, what do you want to be? And he'd be like, I want to be a doctor. Then they'd be like, what do you want to be? And I'd be like, okay, who's next to a doctor? And I'd be like, I want to be a nurse. And then Jiggy, he's like, no, I want to be a pilot. And then I'd be like, okay, no problem, I'm going to be an air hostess. Eventually it was time for him to go to varsity. And the guy chose to study architecture. And I was now thinking, okay, who helps an architect? So he went to varsity and I was next because we're just only 2 years behind each other. But I realized that I actually did not know what I want to be because I'd spent so much time being the sidekick that I'd never taken the time out to actually figure out what I want to be. So I was like, okay, let me be clear with this. I went to my parents. I'm like, listen, I don't want to go to varsity because I don't know what I want to be. So if you can just get me a plane ticket so I can travel and go find myself. When I come back, I'll figure things out and I can go study. My parents looked at me and they're like, fantastic. You know, sounds like a fantastic idea, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to pay for your studies, you're going to graduate, you're going to get a job. Once that's done, you're going to get yourself a plane ticket to anywhere and find yourself. So, I went to varsity. I was the cost hopper of note. You know, I was featherweight because the heavyweights, you know, there were other serious ones. I was like lightweight. And in my second year of varsity, I got an opportunity to travel overseas. My brother was graduating, and the company that had sponsored him decided to offer us all expenses paid trip to go see him graduate. And the trip was beyond expectation, and I was like even more adamant that this is what I want to do, I want to travel. And that actually helped me to focus, because now I was not going to cost hop, I needed to graduate, get a job, and be able to travel. And so here I was at the embassy, interviewing for the dream job to teach in Japan. I was not even fazed about the language. I was like thinking, man, I'm from Soweto, you know. We nailed the languages. I moved to a neighborhood, I learned Tsonga in 10 months. You know, I went to Harankua, I learned how to speak Tswana. So, what is Japanese? Who is Japanese, as Simzwake would say? And a couple of months later, they called me and they're like, great, you got the job, you know? And I was more than ready for the opportunity. I packed up my bags, and on my way to Japan, the first transit I got to the airport, they had a little pocketbook guide on how to speak Japanese. I got that little orange one, I still have it to this day. And I packed it and I was ready to go. I landed in the dead of the night in Tokyo, Naruto Airport, and when I got there, one of my bags was missing. It was not even one of the bags, it was the big check-in bag, the one which had all of the clothes. So essentially I had 3 pants that I had, but I was not stressed because I was like, these guys are going to be paying me, come pay day. It's me and those clothes. So I'm like, you know, but this is also Japan, like how you guys steal as well. So like, we're talking at the airport, like, no, don't worry, you know, your bag was weighed, so for every single kilo that is missing, we're going to reimburse you for it. I'm like, this is good stuff. My first night at the airport, I'm there in my little cubicle, like literally, little cubicle hotel, and it's like 3rd, 4th class level. And the building shakes a bit. So I'm like, okay, I open the door and I look outside, nobody's like running or panicking. I look outside, nobody's panicking. So I'm like, I know I don't relax. Like, so the very next day, I take the bullet train to the middle of Japan, like literally the middle of Japan, to this little town. This little town, which basically you could walk to all the hot spots in 20 minutes. It was gray with all the rice paddies because they don't have green grass. And they had these narrow streets and little miniature cars to match the narrow streets. And literally, like, if you stretched your hands out like this, you could high-five the windows. But this is obviously if you're a tall person like me. If you're a short one, you're going to high-five the bikes. So anyway, the people from the airport, they get in touch. They're like, okay, we found your bag. I get my bag back, and it weighs lighter. So clearly some items, whether they were misplaced, they were stolen, I have no idea. And they're like, we're going to pay you for it. I'm like, oh, even better. I don't even have to go shopping on payday. I can go shopping like right away. So the thing is, I'm 1.75 centimeters tall, yeah? In Japan, the average woman is like 1.58 centimeters. And if I said they weigh 20 kilograms less than me, I would not be exaggerating. The average man is 1.71 centimeters. So I had money, but I couldn't buy clothes. But I was like, this is water off a duck's back. We're gonna carry on, we're gonna live the dream. And as luck would have it, right next door there was this beautiful, beautiful person of the opposite sex. And I'm not going to explain how we got together, but anyway, we got together. So, this dream guy, he was half Brazilian and half Japanese. Beautiful, very beautiful. Meaning he could speak Portuguese very well and Japanese fluently. And myself being freshly off the plane, I could only speak English. Yeah, so we spent like long nights looking at each other's eyes and passing the pocketbook to each other, like trying to have a conversation, trying to understand what the other person is saying. Needless to say, that didn't last long because all I ever wanted was a guy who would ask me, "How was your day?" And we carried on nonetheless. It's the honeymoon phase, you know, you just arrive there, everybody wants to know who's the new sensei, everybody wants to show you around the new parts of town, come with me, let's take the train, I'll show you where everything is. So that was working out okay, but you know you can't be flavor of the month for more than 3 months, yeah? So I was settling into life now to do things by myself, so I go to my colleague, I wanted to go to town. I lived in a town, but it was like a small village, you know? So now I wanted to go to town where they had the malls where I can't buy clothes. So I'm trying to get them to explain to me how to get to town. And they're like, read the kanji, you know, the Japanese characters. And I'm like, that's not going to work because they all look alike, you know? So it's like, okay, let's try counting train stations. So where you're trying to go, I was trying to get to Nagoya, which was the closest city. And they're like, no, it's 10 train stations away. So just sit and count the train stations and the 10th one you get off. Okay. So I'm sitting in the train there and I'm like, okay, let's start counting. And you're like 1, 2, you get to 3 and then you're not sure, was that 3 or 3 the next one? So I find like my neighbor, so I was learning a bit of Japanese. It was hard, it was not like Tonga, trust me. So I get my name and I'm like, Nagoya wa, every time the train stops, I'm like, Nagoya wa. And this guy's like, So you're not even sure if he's shaking his head because you're alone, or he's shaking his head because you're not at your destination. But eventually I got to my destination. And from there on, life was, it had its good moments. It had its good moments. I remember you have to, when you met another person who speaks English, that would be your best friend. Because that's your opportunity to get like a conversation out, you know? And most of the time your friend like lives 2 provinces away, where you have to take a train now, right? So when you move provinces, not only do you have to count trains, they also change color. So you have green, yellow line. So it was a challenge. I would go out with my colleagues. My colleagues were very accommodating. You know, they're very jovial people. They enjoy their food. We'd have lunches or dinner. And they'd be speaking Japanese. As they're speaking Japanese, I'd be sitting there like paying attention, trying to recognize a word or a phrase that I learned in my Japanese class. And as you're paying attention, and people would laugh. And then you also turn up and you're like smiling. You've got this goofy smile because everybody else is laughing. But you didn't understand a thing. So I'm not sure exactly when it happened. I'm not sure if it was the 4th month or the 6th month. I just started missing having small talks. You know that moment when you're sitting with somebody you know, and something silly happens and you look at each other and you both laugh because you know what happened. I didn't have that anymore, because now I had to go like grab the dictionaries and page it, like. So there came a time I had to renew my contract. I had to decide, do I want to be here another year? And I thought long and hard, because the salary I was getting, it was going to take me 6 to 7 years being in South Africa to get to that level of a salary. And I really thought long and hard, but it was an easy decision to make. We all know that Japan is an earthquake-prone and tsunami-prone country. There was no way in hell I was waiting for the afterlife to have a decent conversation. I swiped left on that one. Okay.